Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dustin Kircher. I got my partner here, Ben Dreicer, and we're with MHP Nation. We got, I am super excited about this show. This gentleman that is on our show, and I'll say the name here in a second, is who I first started listening to when I got into the mobile home park space. And so it's going to be a true honor to actually have him on the show and ask what he's doing and the experience that he's been brought to. But we have Kevin Bupp on the show. So if you have not heard of him, you're sleeping under a rock because he's one of the originals to come out in the I don't know if you even call it social media back then, but basically having a podcast training the information about getting into this space. He has the book, The Cash Flow Investor, which I highly recommend checking out. And then he has his current podcast, which is the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow. So
Mhm.
without further ado, Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm giggling like a schoolgirl right now. It's because it's pretty awesome to have you on the show.
That's funny. No, Dustin and Ben, pleasure to be here, man. Excited to be here. And yeah, no, the whole like OG title makes me feel really old. I mean, I'm 45. I feel like I'm doing pretty well, but it definitely still makes me feel old. But no, excited to be here. It's an awesome industry. We've been at it now, over a decade in the mobile home park space, and it gets better and better every year. A little more difficult now because there's everyone's in it, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not it's not a sleepy, asset class now, which it was, 14 years ago when we started buying, but it's an excellent space to be in and lots of great people like yourselves in it.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I started listening to you. I have to say it was probably like 8 years ago.
Hmm.
I had a good friend. He was a mobile home park appraiser. He owned one park at that time, and he's like, "Oh, you should check out this Kevin Bupp guy." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I started listening to your podcast. Then I didn't get into it right away, but I still kept just listening, and I'm kicking myself for not getting into it sooner, but or 8 years ago. But yeah, it's you put out a lot of great information, and I know. I think at one point, I think I signed up to invest in one of your deals too. That was probably like 6 years ago, 5, 6. I never pulled the trigger on it, but it was still interesting because it was one of the first, I guess, syndications that I was going to be investing in, and
Hmm.
you had a great package put together. So, but yeah, so thanks again for coming on the show. So you mentioned you've been doing this for almost 2 decades in the commercial space, and then you got into the mobile park space like 14 years ago. Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, I guess I bought my first mobile home park 2012. Kind
Mm.
of started diving into the asset class in 2011. That's kind of when it came on my radar. But it took me a year. There wasn't a lot of information back then, so it took me a year of it's just that number one, at that time, the economy was still in rough shape, right? And so,
Mhm.
and I had just come from basically losing everything, right? In 2008, 2009, 10, 11, like I had
Yep.
gone through 3 years of chaos and losing everything. And so I had a little bit of money to my name and I had to figure out a way to make it work. And this was the new asset class. And so it took me a while I've made some offers, did some due diligence, got cold feet, backed out, did that a number of times, and finally bought one. And that's where it all started, man. Bought that first one and turned it around. Put all my blood, sweat, and tears into it, and literally myself, one other partner, driving back and forth to Atlanta every other week. Running multiple crews, and it was
Yeah.
great. We had a great success with that first one, and then the second, and the third, and the fourth, and here you go. Now, whatever, 13 years later, we're still at it.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how many parks are you guys? I know you guys sold some, and you,
Yeah.
you kind of fluctuate a little bit. How many parks and spaces are you guys at now?
We have roughly 3,500 spaces in our portfolio. I
Nice.
think that's 19 or 20 parks right
Wow.
now, and I think we've gone full cycle now on I think 19. I think is the number 19 or 20.
That's a great
Um,
wow. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and I'd say that we're probably slowing down more on the going full cycle side. We've really tried to adjust our strategy over the years to be
Mm.
able to hold longer.
Yep.
What I found is the most difficult thing is finding a replacement property, right? Especially you got this finite supply and you got this increasing demand for this product, and it just makes it inherently more difficult to find great assets. And when you have one already, and you turn around sell it, you get a big pop, you make a lot of money, but guess what? You got to go find another one now, and they're not making more of
Yeah.
them. So, again, some of the nice things of this asset class, right? There's like this barrier to entry, and there's no new supply coming out. However, that's also one of the challenges when you're trying to buy
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
Is
Yeah,
that why you
exactly.
moved into a different asset? I know you're doing parking lots as well as part of the main
Yeah.
portfolio as well.
Yep.
Can you talk about
Yeah.
that and how that came on the radar?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, another kind of a accidental discovery, I guess you could say, because mobile home parks were kind of the same thing. Like I wasn't looking for mobile home parks. I was meeting another number of people, and I met this guy Randy, who was introduced to me by a friend, and that's how I came across mobile home parks because he retired as a banker, commercial banker, and bought a couple mobile home parks here in Florida as his retirement. And he, told me how great they were, and of all the reasons why. Now we all know, right? And that's what turned me on. But I wasn't looking for it; kind of found me. And then parking's kind of the same thing. I just always try to keep my eyes open, my eyes and ears open, right? For
Hmm.
not the shiny object stuff, but just like what's unique, what's kind of against the grain, what's the opposite direction of the herd, and what could make really good financial sense. And parking was I like to interview some niche people on my show once in a while. Just
Hmm.
asset classes that aren't just the main bread and butter that everyone knows about. And um, one of those interviews, I think it was 7 years ago now, 6 or 7 years ago, it was quite some time, was a guy that owned parking. He was a broker as well as that's all. He was one of like literally less than a handful of brokers in the country that transact parking. In fact, he's the only one I really know that's all he did. Most other brokers that transact parking also do office or some type of downtown type maybe land or what have you. But he was a broker and he owned the parking assets as well. He had been in the industry for 20 years. And I was so intrigued after that interview. Like, I mean, I was just like, I didn't know the asset class. I mean, we've all parked somewhere. We've all paid the park. In theory, it's a
Hmm.
very simple business model, right? You pull in, you pay $10 or whatever it is, or per hour, and then that's it. There's a lot of other dynamics to it. And I was just very intrigued after having that interview that I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I called him like a couple of days later, asked more questions, flew him into Tampa and spent like a day with him. And then I
Nice.
started, and then for like almost 3 years, my partner and I went to every parking conference there was just to try to learn the industry. Like we spent years contemplating, studying, trying to find a reason not to do it, to not buy
Hmm.
parking. And then we finally pulled the trigger in 2020 was the first year we bought parking, but it took us a number of years of, I don't like diluting focus. I like to be good at just really a targeted,
Yep.
a honed in focus on one thing, right? Like that's just be great at one thing. It's really difficult to be great at many things. And so we were always fearful of diluting our focus and our energies and having that ultimately impact what we were doing in the mobile home park space. And so we were very cautious about going down that path. And ultimately, we couldn't find a reason why we didn't want to dive deeper and go buy a parking asset and see if it would make a good complementary mix to our portfolio. And so,
Hmm.
here we are today. And I mean, our most of what we do is still manufacture housing. We've basically bought one parking asset per year for the last 4 years. They
Okay.
are typically larger in size. We just closed on a parking garage in downtown Charlotte, or I guess uptown is what they call it in Charlotte. Roughly a $31 million asset. Year prior
Yeah.
to that, we closed the one in downtown Phoenix. Year prior to that, we closed the one here in Clearwater Beach in our backyard. And so they're pretty big assets typically, but it still only makes up a minority share of what we do. Like it takes a lot. We have a lot of boxes to check in the parking sector, and we'll look at 100, make an offer on five, and buy one. Like that's literally how the it's very different
Wow.
than mobile home parks. Yeah, like we filter through a lot of crap to find one that checks all of our boxes.
And it's crazy. Is it easy to get financing? I mean, I know this is a mobile park show, but it is pretty
Yeah.
fascinating because is there easy enough to get financing for
Yeah,
that
I
type
mean,
of
there's plenty
asset?
of lenders out there. I mean, if it's a great
Yeah.
asset in a good market that's got a good storyline to it, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of life insurance companies that like the asset class. There's a
Okay.
number of banks that like it. There's CMBS lenders that
Mm.
like the space. So yeah, never had that difficulty getting financing at all. Um, we've never had difficult getting financing in the mobile home park space either. So they're both. I would say that the LTVs are a little bit more limited. They're kind of limited across the board now in every asset class. But generally speaking, even when times are good and capital is free flowing, we'd still be hard pressed to find a loan that was higher than like 65% LTV, maybe 70 potentially, but most of the
Yeah.
time around 65%, which is fine with us. I mean, we're pretty conservative by nature anyway. We like low leverage. That's really the only thing that could ever that can truly kill it. If you're a good operator and you buy a good asset in a good market, really the leverage is the piece that is really the internal bomb that can go off and
Hmm.
completely wreck a deal. And so we like to have low leverage, might not, maximize returns per se, but it gives you longevity. It, gives you consistent performance and the ability to manage volatile times like we're in right now, right? And kind of weather storms.
Hmm. Wow,
And
nice.
and how are you structuring? I believe I saw you're structuring on a fund model more than like a syndication model at this point, or is it both?
Yeah, we just do funds. And I mean, a fund is a form of a syndication. Instead of just having no one individual property that someone's investing in, they're diversifying amongst a number of properties inside that one fund. And so our current fund, which is SCI Growth and Income Fund 4, we launched that October of 2023. That one will wrap up this year as far as bringing new capital in. At present time, there are two parking assets and six or seven mobile home parks in it, and we'll probably end up adding another three or four parks and hopefully maybe one more parking asset, and then that will wrap it up for this year, and then we'll launch another fund. So we find that the fund is nice because it gives it gives a diversity amongst not just the number of asset classes or even assets in general, but asset classes, but also markets. And so like we've got parks in a number of different markets. We've got parking in many different markets, and then you
Hmm.
got two different asset classes as well that live and breathe differently in the economy. So we like the fund structure, and in addition to that, I'd say that it gives us some. We don't ever have capital really just sitting around. So like we don't when we launch a new fund, if it's $100 million fund, we don't go raise $100 million and then go try to spend it. It's kind of running simultaneously. We're bringing capital in as we're buying deals. However, we always typically have some firepower that's readily available. And so it's given us some opportunity in certain instances where we can, if offering cash gives us the competitive advantage, we can be a cash buyer. Even if we're planning to put financing on thereafter, we can kind of work on financing at the same time and say, hey, we'll close this cash, no contingencies at all. Like, don't have to wait on the debt. We'll put debt on there after the fact. And
Yeah.
that's definitely helped us win some deals as well. And you really can't do that in a standard
Okay.
syndication.
Yeah. Nice. And so 19 parks, 3,500 units, and now parking and everything. What's your team look like now uh, with managing this and still with acquisitions?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, very different today than what it looked like even just 3 years ago. I mean, we have a vertically integrated property management company, so on that side of the house, I mean, when you start looking at, the accounting department, the finance team, all the way down to property management level, like community managers and maintenance staff and all that, I think there's roughly about 60 folks on that side.
Okay.
We've got a director of operations that kind of oversees the entirety of that. He reports to me. But we've got director of operations underneath him. There's right now we've got two regional vice presidents that have basically split up our portfolio into two territories, and then underneath them is a community manager. So at some point there might be a district manager that gets plugged in there once we get a little larger, or another potential RVP once we get to a larger scale. Outside of that, the only other big critical role that we have, aside from like support staff on the property management side, is we do have a construction manager full time. We've had him for a number of years, so he's really in tune with all the capex projects, whether it's just a property we just bought or just annual ongoing capital improvement projects,
Hmm.
roads, playgrounds, trees, all those kind of big things. And then he also oversees all the home renovations in conjunction with the on-site manager, and then also assists with lot preparation and all that kind of stuff for new home infill. So a number of things there. That was a critical role that we added, and then outside of that, like on an executive team, it's myself and one business partner, and then we've got a CFO, we've got a CMO, that we've both of which roles that we brought in over the past 2 years. I mean, pretty
Okay.
high paid, but just critical roles in order to. We kind of look at it as like not what we need today. It's like what are we going to need 2 years from now? And I
Hmm.
would say that we struggled with that mentality a couple years back to where we were always being reactive with hiring. And I think I think that's just the standard growth method when you're a small business, right? Like you just start making money, and the last thing you want to do is go hire somebody and give some of that, your money away that you just work so hard
Yeah.
for, right? But really, it's now we're kind of looking at not what we need today. It's like what are we going to need 2 years from now, and then actually, because so we're probably a little heavily weighted with the size that we're at. However, we've got some pretty big ambitious dreams and goals over the next couple of years, and we'll absolutely need these roles in place, and not just in place, but they'll need to have a very firm understanding of who we are, have the systems and processes in place with inside that department, and not just be ready to figure it out when shit hits the fan. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's so we got some great team members though. And outside of that, I guess to your questions, one of the other big departments that we have is we do all of our capital raising comes from high net worth accredited investors.
Hmm.
So our investor relations team actually is pretty robust. I mean, 3 years ago, it was literally just my business partner, Brian. Like he was the guy, like he talked to every
Oh, wow.
investor. He managed every aspect of that. um, Now we've got a number of investor relations guys that literally they're the point person for all new prospects coming in, and we've got support roles within that side of the organization that any existing investors that have questions about their K1s or questions about the portal and that kind of stuff. We've got a number of folks on that side that just support ongoing support for the 700 plus investors that we have in the organization. You got 700 folks at any given time, 50 of them probably need help with something. And
Hmm.
so you need a team to be able to respond to emails and phone calls in a timely manner and offer that support. So, organization definitely looks very different today than what it did just a couple years back.
What
And
would you say was the best hire that you made that took the most amount of pressure off or the weight off your shoulders?
Um, I would say prob- probably our director of operations. I mean, if you want to delineate the roles of myself and my partner, he's mostly on the finance and investor relations side of the house. I'm on acquisitions and then operational. So, I touch every single property that potential deal that comes in the door. I do have a partner, like a gentleman that's worked for me for 3 years. He's on the acquisition side, but it's him and we've got an analyst and things like that to help us underwrite properties. But I look at every property, and then historically, while we always had a director of operations, the scope of that role has changed dramatically over the last couple of years since we brought the current director of operations in, where historically I was still very involved, even on a granular level of reviewing the rehab projects on a weekly basis with the team, approving budgets for renovations of individual homes, including CapEx projects. And I mean, I was very in the trenches. And while we had a director of operations, he wasn't involved in the sales and leasing, wasn't involved in any of that. And so bringing this new individual in that's worked for a very large organization, he's helped a group scale from like 3,000 lots to like 20,000 lots in a couple of years.
Jeez.
He had the chops to come in and really just put all the pieces in place to help take all that crap off my plate. So for me, like just to answer your question from my own personal perspective, it got me out of all the weeds that I was in and really helped me just focus on growing the business, finding more good deals, good opportunities that were a great fit for the organization, and not
Hmm.
getting caught up in the weed of it all. Which you got to be
Yeah.
there. You have to understand that side. You have to understand every aspect of the business. But I was stuck down there for way too long. So for me, and my business partner would probably answer that slightly differently. He'd probably say the CFO, or even the chief marketing officer, or a couple of the sales guys that we brought in that now help bring in capital, right? Because again, he was just one guy kind of doing all that.
Yeah.
The same with me. I was just one man that only had so much time in a day, and it's very difficult to be great at all those things.
So, kind of a follow-up question to that. If you had to go back in the 20 years now for somebody that is just starting to kind of scale, what would you say? What would be your suggestion on the first hire for a team to
Yeah.
help relieve?
I mean, I think the simple way to answer that is like getting the executives you're always wearing a ton of it. You're wearing all the hats originally, and then you got to hand some of the hats off. And so, find a very competent and organized executive assistant,
Yep.
someone that can
That's
also wear multiple hats, someone that's multi-talented, that's incredibly organized, that communicates very effectively. That individual will take a lot of burden off your plate, and I think that's a critical hire for anybody. And honestly, the funny thing is, I say that, but it took me literally until like a year ago to hire an executive assistant. My business partner, he's had one for years, and like I've watched all the the greatness that she's brought to his life, and he always give me crap about it. He's like, man, I know you're putting all these other pieces in place, and like Todd's great in the director of ops role, and you've got Kirk, my acquisitions guy, and I got a number of other great support staff there. He was like, you're still like you're stuck with your email, man. Can you get someone in there and actually help you with your email? And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. So I finally brought in a executive assistant, but I think that's a critical role. Um, Outside of that, I'd say what you really need to do is sit down, whatever you want to call it, org chart, accountability chart,
Hmm.
whatever your naming convention is for what your organization, who's in there, who reports to who, what roles, what scope or responsibilities are associated with those roles. Sit down and map it out to what it not just what it looks like today. It could just be you, right? But really, what you want to do is start looking at like 1, 3, 5 years, maybe even 10 years, right? Be very aspirational with what it's going to look like in 10 years, but really start building it out to where it's going to need to be or where you want it to be, whenever you hit that 1 year goal, that 3 year goal, and literally put the titles in, what the responsibilities are going to be. It's going to really help guide the ship. And we didn't do that. I mean, we're doing it now and we've done it in the last couple of years, but honestly, like just that exercise like 3 years ago is what really pushed us to really go on a hiring spree. And if we wouldn't have hired a lot of the critical roles that we currently have, I don't think the last 2 years were the two biggest growth years that we've had as an organization as far as new assets into the organization. When a lot of other folks are kind of like they slowed down quite a bit, like we literally went on a rampage, which was interesting. And the only thing I can attribute that to is the team that we had and the support staff to be able to actually take on all the opportunities that came our way. So
Hmm.
sit down and map it out. Sit down and map out what it needs to look like, who's going to be in those seats, what are they going to do, and how are they going to help you achieve your goals.
Nice. That's
Can you
great
talk a
insight.
little bit more about that, your like 3, 5, 10 year goal, and like what does your business look like then, or what you want it to look like, what you guys are gearing up towards?
Yeah, and I would say that like the staff that we have in place right now, for the most part, will help us facilitate the next 2 years worth of growth. I mean, we might have to hire a few additional support roles and things like that, but I mean, we've got most of the C-level suite kind of built out for the most part. Um, you know, I think that the next layer to that would be probably Brian and myself at some point, literally working our way up into like a chairman of the board or a board type role, right? Where we're still involved in the business, but like we've literally brought in a COO, a CEO to basically replace us. And I actually enjoy what I'm doing. I don't necessarily see that being a thing at any time in the next couple of years. But um, as far as like I can maybe speak to like we kind of drive our growth by AUM goals. Like right now we're about 340 or 50 million of AUM, depending on who you ask. Um, and then our goal for the end of this year, I think it's 450. So 450 in the next year. So we're going to add another, and we just closed on some stuff. So I think we were at 320, and basically we wanted to add 130 million dollars of AUM to the organization. That's between both parking and mobile home parks. I think our 3 year goal out from, I guess you could say, the beginning of this year is to be at 750. Um, and then I would I'd like to be our 7 year goal there after that. We don't have a 10 year goal, but our 7 year goal there after that's $1 billion. And I think that
Wow.
actually, I think that's a little too far. I think we can get there quicker than 7 years from now. But ultimately, that's kind of how we have it staggered out. And we reevaluate it every year. We look back
Hmm.
at it again. We reflect on it every quarter. How are we doing? Are we on track? If not, what do we have to do to get back on track? And yeah, that's our Northern Star. AUM is our Northern Star because we
Nice.
know that. I think the thing like with organization, I think we don't scale this to scale. I think this is important. Like growth for just growth's sake is stupid. It really is. Like that doesn't make sense. And the whole
Hmm.
I'm not the guy that's out there like, you better be grinding 24/7, yeah, that whole like grind mentality. I don't really fall into that
Yeah.
camp. I work hard, but I like to work smart and actually have some free time on my hands and spend it with my family. Um,
Yep.
and so, I think it's the growth piece. There is a certain period of time in your business where you actually do need to figure out how to grow a little bit so that you can actually have enough revenue to afford the support ecosystem that you're going to need to truly have a business that can somewhat live and breathe on its own without you being around all the time, right? Like that's the whole idea of having a business is so that you can buy back some of your time, buy back freedom. If you're just stuck in the daily grind all the time, then you just bought yourself a job, which isn't there's nothing wrong with that, but there's you didn't necessarily get to the freedom part and the flexibility that, being a business owner with a truly sustainable business will get you. And so I do think that there's that moment of going from like just the guy that does everything to literally doing that for a while, hiring maybe an executive assistant, but then getting to the point to like getting to a scale. And I don't know, it means something different for everybody about getting enough of those support mechanisms in place, those roles in place that can give you some breathing room, right? Like if
Yeah.
you want to go on a cruise with your wife and your family for a week, like the whole business isn't going to fall apart, right? You're not going to have 8,000 emails when you get back from angry tenants about, why the rent check hasn't been cashed or, whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
maintenance issues and things like that. So I do think that there's a point in time where you have to grow if you want to have a real business. But then
Mhm.
after that, once you've got that baseline, once you reach that baseline, I think it's just, grow intelligently, grow responsibly, whatever that means to you. So
Yep. Yeah, don't just keep adding to the numbers to beat your chest. It's
I
finding
think a
the
lot of
right
people get
assets
hyped
and
up on that. I think too many
yeah.
people get hyped on it. And maybe I spend too much time scrolling through Instagram feeds or Facebook feeds, but that's not me. And anyway, and there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that, right? But like, it's just who gives a shit, what the
Yeah.
how many units you have or how many lots you have. Like, honestly, that's not even relevant. It's not. I can honestly, I make more money off of, and I just actually sold my last personal mobile home park that I own. So everything I own now is like in the company. I've slowly sold out like my personal stuff over the years. But I would tell you that any single one property I bought by myself, I made way more than what I make of it being in Sunrise. I just do, I mean, it takes me
Yeah.
a while to get into the promote of the deal. Like I've worked for basically free for many, many years. I mean, honestly, like we launched our very first fund in 2016 and I didn't start getting distribution checks out of that until probably 2020, somewhere around there, right? Like, 3, 4 years of like hard work before that starts paying back its dues. And it wasn't like going
Yeah.
gangbusters. Right? So like, anyway, so like, if you just go do a deal, like the whole number things doesn't make sense. We owned a couple hundred lots back then, and I had 135 space property myself that made more money than what I made by the company that had 1,000 lots, right? So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's all about the
Yeah.
long term vision, right? Long term vision, long term plan. Like for me, it's all about like building an organization, not worrying about what those first couple years look like.
Yeah, yep, exactly. I love your answers because I think too many people are stuck on like, okay, I got to get to this many spaces. Is like, but if you can pick up some smaller ones and it's solely owned by you and not too many investors,
That's
then
right.
what's the difference? You're all it comes down to is your NOI and what your take home is. If you start bringing, doing syndications and doing all this other stuff, you're giving up. Like you said, it took 4 years before you started bankrolling off of that, and
Yep.
that's the case now, especially with the amount of people that are in the mobile park space and even the RV park space. It's you're gonna run into that where if you're setting up the syndications, you're not paying yourself for a good couple of years before you
That's right.
stabilize that asset.
Yep.
But
No, I agree. Absolutely
uh,
true.
With is there any RV parks in your portfolio? Have you looked at them? What's your overall take on the
Yeah, no,
RV
I
business?
think it's a great business. It's just a different business. It's different than what a traditional MH business looks like. And so for that reason, I mean, we've looked at them, we've considered them, but like we're not our infrastructure is not set up for it. Our team's not set up for it. And so I mean, if you're talking about, and again, we want to make sure that we understand the different buckets of RV parks that are out there, right? So we're based in, I don't know where you guys are based out of, but I'm in Florida, and there's plenty of RV parks that are zoned RV parks, and they've got 70% are park models, right, that never leave,
mhm,
right, and then the rest of them are actually campers that have porches built on them. They've got they got roof overs on them. They're not going anywhere anytime soon either. And even if they're a seasonal, if they're zoned seasonally to where people can only be there 6 months out of the year, they still pay for an annual rate. So those things live and breathe like mobile home parks, but they just happen to be
yep,
RV parks. So I'm all about those. We don't own any of those. We have owned in the past, but they live and breathe like a mobile home park. But like your traditional RV park that's got mostly transient, a lot more staff heavy, right?
mhm,
Seasonality can come into play in a big way. That's not really our MO. I think it's a great business. It's not, we're not really built for it. And yeah, so we just haven't really gone that path. I think that's a simple answer, and I like it. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's got legs. I think it's got longevity to it. However, I do think there's some risk aspects I don't know how to actually quantify. There's a major boom of RV sales over like COVID years, and now that
Mhm.
is going the opposite direction. I don't know what that looks like. Credit card debt's an all-time high, consumer debt's an all-time high. I don't know what that looks like in a year or two for that industry. That doesn't necessarily impact like the boomers that are driving the $200,000 Class A's, but that sure as hell impacts those that are driving their Dodge Ram pickup with their 30-foot travel trailer behind them
Yep.
that are going to those RV parks. So I don't know to
Yeah.
what extent though, which is the part that I don't like. We do know that in the mobile home park space, everyone needs a roof over their head, right? Everyone needs an affordable roof over their head. That's easy to understand. And so I'm a simple guy. I stick with that.
Yeah. Nice.
Another question,
Um,
just
okay.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, just because we have this podcast has opened up a tremendous amount of doors for us and has been kind of like a blessing. I want to hear from your perspective, given that you're one of the OGs of the game and you've been podcasting and interviewing people. Can you talk about how that has affected and has that created incredible connections or opened up doors? And is there any actual tangible things that you can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I will say that when I started my original podcast, I only did it for the purpose. I was an early adopter of podcasts, and so I did a lot of driving way back when, and this is before people knew what a podcast was for the most part.
Mhm.
And so I was an early adopter, but there weren't a lot of real estate podcasts. Real Estate Guys radio show was around. There was a couple other like Jason Hartman. There's a few other obscure ones, but like that was about it. And there wasn't any that were out there talking about commercial real estate investments, the things I wanted to be talking about. This is before the mobile home park days, right? And so I started it because it didn't exist, and I figured two things would come out of it. I didn't do it for business purposes or anything like that. It was like number one, I get to interview people for an hour and ask them whatever I want to ask them. People that are more successful than I, that have maybe done more than I have done, or own things that I'd like to own. And so I get to have a candid conversation with them for an hour and ask them, whatever my heart desires. I thought that was a ton of value. And the second of that was there's got to be someone else out there like me, at least one person that actually wants to hear the answers to these questions. And so, if that was the case, then it's a win-win. And that's why I started it. But ultimately, what happened is had a lot of people that started tuning in, and people that would reach out and ask about projects. So I'd talk about projects that we had working in the early days. I'd even give case studies. I'd talk about literally what happened the prior week at a property that we were working in, or a property we had under contract or in due diligence on, things like that. And just by default, people would start reaching out. And this is before we had any funds or syndications or anything like that, before we were ever taking investor money. And so, a light bulb went off probably like 3 years into it. And that's when we really started leveraging the podcast. But I never asked for anything. I just would always give, give, give. And then when the time came, I'd put out little tidbits or little hints of a opportunity of working together or putting some
Yeah.
capital work. And so by default, it helped our business grow. Like it kicked us off, and it connected us with a lot of our initial LPs. And I would say up until probably like a year and a half ago, probably 95% of the capital that we've raised is either directly or indirectly a result of the podcast.
Nice.
Just, years and years and years of me, yammering in people's ears, right, about who we are and what we do, and our investment philosophy and all that. So, to answer your question of like, it's had a major positive impact on the business. I don't know what our business would look like if it wouldn't have been for the podcast. I think I'd still be in real estate, still be doing my thing. I don't know if we would have had the success as far as capital raising, especially in the earlier years, that we would have without the podcast. I'm not sure, but it's definitely had a positive impact. And then outside of that, the connections that it's made have been huge. I've met a lot of really great people. Again, people that are way smarter than me, people that can, kind of lean on when I have questions, or just, that have already been there, done that with what I'm doing. And I've gone through the challenges, right? Reach back out to them, say, hey, I've got this going on, man. Give me some feedback. I'd love your input. What would you do? Just that network is worth quite a bit. Don't know how to put a dollar amount on it, but it's really invaluable. So and I have fun doing it. So like, I think that the last piece of it is I actually really enjoy the podcast. There's no way you can do something for 11 years if you actually truly don't enjoy it. Right. And don't get me wrong. I've
Yeah.
had some not so fun conversations. I'm like, oh God, this is bad. Right. But like 95% of the conversations are enlightening, and
Yeah.
there's at least one golden nugget I can pull away from the conversation that's improved my life, improved my business, has done something positive for me. And so for that, I've had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. We get to talk to amazing people like you, and we get to learn, and it opens up a lot of opportunities out there. So,
yeah, I
uh,
mean, I'll give you a prime example, and I always forget to mention this. This is awesome. Literally, my business partner Brian, he's like one of the smartest guys I know. The guy's absolutely brilliant. So way back when I started my podcast, probably within a year, I kind of understood the Apple algorithm. Like you wanted to get reviews and like, unless you entice people to a certain degree, like people just, I don't know if I've ever actually left a review on a podcast. And there's a lot I listen to, right? It's just normally only people that leave reviews are people that leave you bad reviews. And so you have to prompt them to, to get people to leave positive reviews. And so I put myself out there every Friday for 30-minute slots. And I set up a Calendly link or, a link like that, a scheduling link. And for like literally years, I would literally every Friday from 2 to 4, I would get on with whoever was listening that wanted to talk shop, whatever you wanted to talk about, right? Like real estate related for 30 minutes. And I met a
Mhm.
ton of people like that. And the only thing I would ask for is like, if you've enjoyed, not just a conversation, if you enjoyed the show, just please leave an honest review and rating. Like that was it. Like that was my ask. And through that, I met some amazing people. And through that, I actually met Brian, who became my business partner. So,
Nice.
um, literally, I mean, this is like back in 2000 and probably, I guess 2000, probably within the first year. He was one of my first couple calls I had, and I had hundreds of them over the years. And ultimately, within a couple years after that, he kind of kept in touch and ultimately came into the organization earlier on as like a partner, as like just an equity partner slash, kind of I'll do whatever you need to, and now literally, owning half the business. And so, um, I think there was a lot of value there for him and I, both of us, in that endeavor, and it's all because of the podcast.
That's
Awesome.
awesome. That So you were just offering just anybody, and I think I heard them in some of your anybody could fill in the calendar link just to talk to you.
Yep.
And
You just want
through
to talk shop.
the
Yep.
you would ask them, leave a good review if you enjoyed this. And then not only did it help the Apple algorithm and your show do better, but you also met some incredible connections, including your
That's right.
main business partner right now.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's the biggest one of all of them. I mean, like, you know, again, I attribute a big part of what we've been able to do to him, right? Like, it's finding the right business partner, right? Like, we've got complementary skill sets. We're literally we're very aligned, yet we're very different people, which is a big value, right? And just growing an organization. And he's a great individual, incredibly intelligent, and does all the things that I enjoy in the business, and I do all the things that he doesn't enjoy, and it's a match made in heaven.
Nice. That's great.
And that parking lot, if you didn't talk to that parking lot guy on your show, would you have started buying parking lots?
No, I wouldn't have known about it. I wouldn't even consider. I mean, I wouldn't have known enough. And I don't know if I'd have ever found myself in a conversation because to this day, without going to these parking conferences and now being kind of ingrained in the industry, I don't think I would have ever met anybody that owned parking as an investment. And even now that we're in it, it's very fragmented. It's either truly it's municipalities, mom and pops that own like one, or
Mhm.
institutions that own, the big stuff in Chicago and New York and, you name it, big city, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of institutional capital in the space, but outside of that, it's very fragmented. And I just don't think I would have ever come across anybody that owned anything. So no, the answer is no. I don't think that we would be in parking if it wasn't for that show, that one show, where I interviewed that guy and he piqued my interest just enough for me to,
Yeah.
keep going after it for a while.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you talked about getting into your AUM over the next 3 years, couple years. Uh, are you looking to get to that number with mobile homes, a mix of mobile home parks
Mhm.
and parking, or is there any other asset classes that you're going to be adding on to get to that level?
Just those two, and we have no intent whatsoever. Like there's not even anything that's on the remote horizon or even like in the back of our minds of another asset class that we would invest in. At this
Yeah.
point, I think those are the two. They're very complementary. They work well together. Um, and so, yeah, that's it. And I don't know what proportionate piece of it being MH to, to parking. Again, like I said, parking, we'd like to own more of it. It's just, we have to look at so many, and there's only, a minority few that really check all of our boxes. And those, just to give you guys some more context of what that means for us. So like a lot of parking that was built, like we like to buy most of the parking we own is in like, it's in downtown areas, like central business districts. Um, and a lot of parking that was built in the last couple of decades, 20, 30, 40 years, a lot of it really was there to support predominantly offices, office towers in downtown areas. And we all know what's going on in the office space, right? I don't know how to
Mhm.
fix that problem. And if I'm looking at a parking asset and 80% of the traffic or historic traffic, maybe not even now, but like historic traffic was from folks that were going to the office building next door or the one it's attached to, or the three office buildings in that block. Um, and now that revenue's down, that those car counts are down. Like I can't fix that one, right? And so really, what we're looking for is parking that's in those downtown areas that has a very low reliance on office. And if it has any reliance on office, it's got to be like 20%. Like it can't be. And then outside of that, it's got to be very diversified amongst a litany of other things, meaning that it's got to have office. It's got to be in a 24/7 city where there's stuff going on literally during the day, during the night, 7 days a week. It can't just shut down at 5 p.m. and then the weekends are dead. So it's
Yeah.
got to have that. It's got to have some type of like entertainment venue nearby, whether it be a professional sports arena, a large music venue, museums, government's another big one, like government buildings, courthouses, what have you. It's got to have an element like that to it. So, and it's got to have a big transient component, and that could be made up of a multitude of things: other offices in the area, retail, street level retail, people visiting friends that live in the condo building down the street, going to restaurants, what have you. And so it's got to have a very even keeled scale across all those demand drivers in order for us to have an interest. And what we look at most of the time is it might be a great location and it might be a great part of town and it might be irreplaceable real estate in a phenomenal city, but most of the demand was office. It's down, and I don't know when or if it's ever going to come back, and it probably won't. So it's
Yeah.
hard to bet on. It's hard to bet on that. And so most of the things that we look at just get thrown in the trash because I don't know how to fix that piece of it.
I'm gonna ask you a question. It's a game that me and my kids play, and it's if you had to pick between the two, parking or bowling parks, and then you had to do that for the rest of your life, what one would you pick?
That's that's a great question. I mean, again, I'm going to look at it from a only from a perspective of scale, but simplicity with that scale. You and I both know everyone. If you haven't been in mobile home parks so long, you're just getting into it, and then you start thinking about how easy it is. Oh, we don't own any of the homes, and everyone pays their lot rent on time. And it's just so far from the truth, right? Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
moving parts to the business, and it's a difficult business to do it really well. It's a difficult business. Lots of personalities involved, lots of different demographics you're dealing with, and on the parking side, if we play our cards right and we check all those boxes with the demand drivers, you know, there's not a lot of personalities that we have to deal with. In fact, we're not vertically integrated on the management side of parking. There's a lot of really big, local, regional, and national groups, even a couple that are publicly traded that are in the managerial side that manage the day-to-day stuff. And we would never, it would, if we tried to build out internally, like we would never be able to compete and do it as well as what they do it for the cost that they do it for. So for that reason, like we have a lot less manpower on that side. We have an in-house asset management. We source all of our own deals. However,
Mhm.
outside of that, it's a little easier. I mean, like it's just an easier business to operate.
Yeah.
When compared to mobile home parks. So like that's the only thing that I would base it on. But I do think it's hard to argue the point of everyone needs the affordable housing crisis in this country is real. Everyone needs a roof
Mhm.
over their head. And the product that we provide literally fills that void better than anything else. And so for that reason, from a supply demand side, I would still probably argue with mobile home parks. However, it's harder to
Yeah.
run.
Yep. Are
The
you
parking stuff,
seeing?
yeah. Go ahead.
Uh,
Sorry.
uh,
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't give you a straight answer when it was all said and done. But anyway, I think parking. If I had to keep it simple,
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely it's intriguing on that side because it's less, and you could correct me, a little bit less management intensive than a mobile home
it's
park, right?
it's actually very managerial intensive for the management company. Like there's a lot of moving parts there. There's a lot of
Oh, on the
elements.
parking there is. Okay.
Yeah, but it's not. It's like there's companies out there, and there's plenty in the big markets we're in. There's no less than 6 or 7 big companies that are very competitive, and even cutthroat to get managerial business. And it's only ever on a month to month basis. And so if one sucks really bad, there's 3 others waiting in line to do a better job.
Mm,
And they've got proprietary tech platforms. They're huge companies, right? They've got a lot of R&D money behind them, and so like they do
yeah.
it better than we'd ever be able to do it on a day by day operations side.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. That just shows how naive I am with that that asset class.
No,
So,
no, I was too. So yeah,
um, so throughout the years, like this question is just, what's been your biggest horror story in the mobile park space, and the biggest learning opportunity?
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot horror story. Yeah, I don't know.
Probably quite a few, but
Yeah, and I don't even know horror story. I mean, we had one. I guess we had and this really goes back to you better be doing your due diligence. This is like I don't know. I guess probably park number 7 or 8. And luckily it was a small park, and we didn't have a lot of our own equity. I think we didn't have bring any investor capital in per se, but I think we ended up maybe putting like 50 grand down on this property, and we did due diligence. It was on septic. It was on a master septic. The park kind of sat on a hill, and everything flowed by gravity down to a large septic field in the back.
mhm.
It was out of state, and so we hired like a local septic company to go, do a stress test on the leach field and check the tank, make sure there's no cracks, and just make sure that it was working as it should. And we relied upon, instead of having boots in the ground, actually seeing with our own eyes and getting like a second opinion, we relied upon the report of the septic company that everything was hunky dory. And so we closed on this. Had about I think it was 50 grand down. I think it was a 40 site park. And then within like 3 weeks of taking it over, and being that they owner financed it, like we just and we didn't and we were putting so little down, and we got a little lazy with the due diligence, and we checked all the boxes per se, but we didn't really go deep enough to truly check all the boxes, right? And so within a couple of weeks of owning it, we went in and started cleaning things up. And it's funny because, people even give you pushback when you clean things up, which is really funny to me. Like you go in and start, cleaning up the big pile of debris and
Yeah.
trash that had been accumulating over time. And sure enough, one of the big piles of trash was in the very back of the park. And it was basically the community dump. People were dumping couches back there and debris and all this stuff. And we went and started cleaning it up. And sure enough, while we were back there cleaning it up, the EPA rep from the EPA came in. Someone had called him an anonymous call from inside the park, and come to find that back behind this pile, the reason why this pile was in the back of the park is because at some point in time the leach field had truly failed, and the old owner, the father or the guy had passed away, so his wife was running the park. She's the one that sold it to us. Um, he had put a secondary discharge line into the tank, that basically didn't go into the leach field. This basically drained out into the back of the park in this property that was covered up by this big pile. And someone in the park knew that and didn't like the fact that someone else came in to buy this thing and was making everyone clean their stuff up and was going to probably raise rents. And he called the EPA on us. And
Ah,
it was a nightmare because there was no public utility line nearby. We couldn't easily hook um, into public sewer. And on top of that, there was not enough virgin soil. How the topography laid of the land, there was not enough virgin soil to put another leach field. There was no room for another septic system at all. So like to put a backup one in or a secondary one, or that wasn't an option. And so the only
yeah.
alternative was for us to start literally pumping it out with a truck and dumping it up the road, which, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
is incredibly expensive. And there was no backup plan in sight. And so that's another piece of we always have a backup plan now. We always ensure that there's either municipal sewer nearby, or we have enough virgin soil that if in the event we'd have to put a new leach field in, that we can do that. So otherwise, we won't buy a property. I don't care how well it's run, everything's going as planned. If we don't have a plan B that's very clear, as far as sewer or water, well, if it was on
Hmm.
a private well, we won't buy it. So that one was a nightmare. And so it got to the point we just walked away. I mean, the husband knew that maybe the wife didn't know, someone else knew in the park, right? And so we just we tried to deal with it for like a couple months. We just wiped our hands clean of it. So we ended up walking away from. Probably at the end of the day, it ended up probably being like more like 100 grand, because we spent quite a bit of money,
Yeah.
pumping the sewage out and delivering it down the road, and just we're kind of like, this is stupid. this is
So
this
did the
is
inspector lie on the report, or how did
Yeah, he probably didn't even test the system. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like if you just open up the tank,
Yeah.
there was three concrete tanks there, I think is how it was. Or maybe there was two large. I forget the setup, but like it was very clear as day. If you pump down the tank, you would see this discharge, the secondary discharge that wasn't going to the leach field. I mean, it was like a 4 inch PVC. I mean, going straight out of the
Yeah.
back of the concrete tank, or there's two of them. But anyway, yeah. If the septic company would have done their job, if they inspected, in order to inspect the concrete walls of a septic tank, you have to pump it down. It
Yeah.
surely didn't happen. Or he was blind, or who knows. So again,
Oh,
not being on
geez.
site, not having boots on the ground when that was happening, we would have caught that. We would have absolutely
Yeah.
caught. I know what to look for. We would have caught that. So that was a horror story. Again, it could have been a lot worse, but luckily that wasn't like $1 million. Like it wasn't. That could have been a detrimental amount of money to somebody. Like in fact, if that was my first deal, that's literally I was broke and had bad credit because I lost everything. And like my first deal had to work, and I was banking on it to work. If that was my first deal, that would have bankrupted me and probably would have. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't have went and tried it again, but like it would have put me in a very precarious state.
Yeah.
And so just due diligence is everything. Make sure that you spend the time and energy. Now we probably go overboard. I mean, we spend quite a bit of pursuit costs on due diligence. We hire professionals, engineers, we scope all sewer lines. I mean, we go pretty in depth when we're buying a property.
Yeah. I
So,
don't think a lot of people realize the sunken costs to get into a property with no guarantee of closing,
oh
right? That
yeah.
due diligence period, you could spend thousands, 10 thousands of dollars.
We just had a big one. We had 3 parks in Michigan that had every tenant closing. We made it really far along, and we sewer scoped all the lines. And I mean, anyway, just but what came about is that what you can't see under the ground is what will always get you. All that infrastructure, all 3 of these parks were an absolute train wreck under the ground. A mixture of private utilities and bad lines that had been replaced 15 years ago, but they didn't dig them deep enough, or the joints were all like literally some of them weren't even jointed together. I mean, like it was a complete. It's almost like you went and hired the crackhead down the road to like, hey, you mind putting new sewer lines in for me? That's what it looked like. And so we had nearly $100,000 into that deal, and we walked away from it. We didn't even want to buy
Wow.
it, even after price
Yeah.
reduction. I was like, I don't want to deal with like I do not want to deal with replacing infrastructure in 3 parks, and they're in Michigan, so like you only got a certain part of the season you can actually do it. I'm like, there's no way, I'm not doing it. I'd rather lose $100,000
Yeah.
because the uncertainty and the unknowns, you could lose way more, right? I'd rather lose 100 grand than $1 million, which I thought there
Yeah.
was a chance of doing that. No matter what you pay for it, like there's still a lot more skeletons that we're not seeing.
Yeah. Wow. Geez. So, we talked about, you're not investing any other assets. Uh, what is your kind of buy box now that you're talking about the due diligence? What is your buy box, and how has that changed over the years?
Yeah, I'd say the bigger the better. I just think more scale is better when you're buying a
Hmm.
park. However, with that being said, I mean we have like a 38 space park under contract now that it happens to be 5 minutes away from about 300 other sites that we own. So
Yeah, makes
it's pretty
sense.
easy to piggyback. But I'd say generally speaking, 80 to 100 lots are greater in size. And even then, if it's in the area we don't have anything remotely close and it's just inconvenient to get to from other properties, then it probably should be bigger, or we know that there's another opportunity like in that market that we'll hopefully be able to buy in the near future. So 100 spaces are larger, but the bigger the better for us. And outside of that, I'd say that while we still do big turnarounds, like we've got a property in North Carolina, we're doing a major infill. We're literally bringing like 120 homes in over the next 4 years. And that's a major heavy lift. It's in a great market. It's like one of the last remaining big parks in that area that just had a bad operator, didn't have money to put back into it.
Mm,
Outside of that, I would say that we don't do as many heavy lifts. Most of it's like kind of like light value, great parks, little higher quality parks, with still some levers that we can pull. But
yeah.
but knowing that there's um, we have to have a number one, we have to have a clear path. Whether it doesn't, if it doesn't qualify today for agency debt, like it's got to be of a good enough quality and size that we'll be able to put agency debt on down the road, or whoever we're going to sell it to can put agency debt on down the road. I think there's a premium there. So anything we buy, we won't buy it unless we can get agency debt. Um,
Yeah.
so that's a big piece of it. And then the quality, I'd say our quality has gotten quite a bit more. I just I've done enough now. I've seen enough, and you can make money in the parks that have the really old homes in them. And but like if they're really old homes and it's worn out, that's who's living in there too. It's a really old, worn out person, like, and they're tough to deal with. They're tough to get money out of. You got higher turnover. I don't care what the P&L says. Like it's just, and there's only some of that stuff you can deal with. Like there's only so many hours in the day. And so we found that paying a premium for the higher quality stuff with the resident base that pays more consistently, and also that you'll get a more compressed cap rate in the background because you probably have a larger institutional player that's going to be your buyer.
Yep.
It's easier to scale with that model, and it's got better longevity in our eyes, than just buying all turnaround stuff that's rough, that needs lots of work and lots of heavy lifting. But again, there's no right or wrong there. We've done it all. And we still will do it all, but there's only so many hours in the day. So
Yeah. Any kind of utility structure that you stay away from, or are you looking at
no,
everything?
we'll do everything. I mean, we've never owned lagoons. I'm not like overly excited to go buy them, but we own treatment plants. Again, it all comes down to due diligence and
Hmm.
knowing that that it's been maintained well, that you got a plan B in place in the event there could be a a failure down the road or you have to replace it. So anyway, we own it all. We own wells. I'd say the wells are the biggest pain in the butt, not the sewer plants. I mean, the sewer plants and septics. I mean, if you just keep up with them, we have licensed engineers and operators that manage them for us. They do all the reporting to the states for us, so we budget that into our underwriting. The wells are the biggest pain in the butt. I've always been told, and it rings true. You can't poison anyone with the poop. But you can, if you don't do your job with the well and you don't manage it appropriately, you can sure as hell poison people with the water, right? And so, like,
Hmm.
there's a big responsibility with the well side of the business and knowing what you're getting yourself into with the well than there is with the sewer side. So no, we'll look at everything. We own everything. In fact, I think there's an opportunity there because you get some people that they went to a boot camp and that person scared them away of like to stay away from or private utilities.
Yeah.
You just have to dig a little deeper, spend a little more money and due diligence, more time, understand what you're getting yourself into. But
Yep.
don't shy away from it because some of our best operating parks, the ones that make the most money, are on private utilities.
Yeah. Nice. Well, Kevin, we're about an hour into this. I do really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. So I appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to share, or anybody that's new getting into this business, a word of wisdom?
No, I mean, I think just again, you don't know until you go, So like get in and buy. I mean, if you're looking around and you like the asset class, but it's all theoretical up until this point, you just got to dive in. I mean, like it's not all it's not all that just making money, everyone pays on time, it's a great asset class because everyone needs an affordable place to live. I mean, there's some challenges with it, right? Like you got
Hmm.
sometimes tougher tenant bases and but like at the end of the day, if you it all comes down to location. I mean, if you I always say that you can go buy like a nice pretty park, but if it's in a poor market, rural market, people are moving away, there's not a lot of job opportunity, you can't fix that other part of it. Like it might be a good looking park, it might be trading on a seemingly attractive cap rate, and you might think that's a no lose endeavor, but you can't fix the market part of it. I'd much rather buy the roughest park in the best area because I know that if I can just get rid of the bad people that are in there and
Hmm.
fix it up, put money back into it, I can attract tons of quality prospects that want to live there with their families and send their kids to the good public schools and all that. So, but you got to do it, right? You got to get in and get your hands dirty. So I would say just that's the advice: is get in, and get your hands dirty, buy the first one, and you'll learn a lot. I mean, it's on the job experience is everything.
Yep, yep, exactly. Well, how can people get a hold of you, Kevin, and send you deals or invest in your deals? What's the best
Yeah,
way of them reaching out?
if if you want to learn about Sunrise and what we do over there, you can go to investwithsunrise.com. We've got information about current offerings. We've got case studies of deals that we've done. We go pretty granular. We provide lots of details on the site about historical funds as well. Again, case studies. We've got some webinars that we've recorded and things like that, so you can learn about again who we are, what we do, how we do it. And then me personally, I mean, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Also active on Instagram and Facebook, and I always joke and say my name is unique enough, Bupp Bupp, that I don't know if there's any other Kevin Bupps that are in real estate. So just type that in. You don't need the handle, and you'll track me down on any one of those social channels.
Nice, very cool. Well, thanks again so much for being on the show. It truly is a dream to have you on here because you were the first person I listened to get into this industry. So I appreciate everything you shared. I'm pretty sure all the listeners will get lots of knowledge from you, what you've talked about. So thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, no, Dustin and Ben, I appreciate it, guys, and keep up all the great work. I know how much work goes into these things, right? So appreciate all you do, and yeah, great questions, and for those that are listening, yeah, just that, like, lean on these guys. These guys obviously know what they're doing. They're in the space, and so just you got to get out there and do it. So with that, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.